Michael Jordan's shoes did not become popular by accident, and they did not become iconic because of some outside group adopting them first. They became popular because of what people saw every single time Michael Jordan stepped on the basketball court. That is the main point that needs to be understood before anything else. When Rich Paul suggested that street guys were a major reason Air Jordans became popular, he wasn't just sharing a different opinion. He was rewriting history in a way that ignores what millions of fans actually experienced in real time. Air Jordans came out during a period when the NBA was exploding globally. Games were being watched live, highlights were everywhere, and Michael Jordan was doing things nobody had ever seen before. People didn't need to be told that he was special. They could see it with their own eyes. Night after night, he was flying through the air, finishing through contact, hitting clutch shots, and playing with an intensity that separated him from everyone else. That feeling is what drove people to want anything connected to him, including his shoes. The idea that people mainly bought Jordans to copy street dudes with nice cars completely misses the reality of that era. Most kids who wanted Jordans were watching basketball, not looking around their neighborhoods for role models. They wanted to be like the man they saw on TV dominating the league. They wanted to feel even a small piece of what it felt like to be Michael Jordan. The shoes were a symbol of that connection. Jordan's impact went far beyond style or image. It was rooted in performance. Every game felt important. Every possession mattered. He played like he was trying to prove something every night. That hunger translated into belief. Fans believed that if they wore Jordans, they were wearing something built on hard work, confidence, and fearlessness. That belief cannot be manufactured. It has to be earned. Nike didn't take a chance on Michael Jordan because they thought street culture would do the work for them. They took a chance because they saw a once-in-a-lifetime talent. They saw someone who could carry a brand because he carried himself differently. Jordan demanded excellence from himself and from the people around him. That mindset matched what Nike wanted to represent. The partnership worked because it was authentic. If the formula was really as simple as Rich Paul claims, then it should have been repeated many times by now, but it hasn't. Plenty of athletes have had big marketing pushes. Plenty have had access to influencers, social media, and massive budgets. None of them have come close to creating what Jordan did. That alone tells you the explanation being offered doesn't hold up. Another important point is longevity of influence. Jordans didn't just sell during Michael Jordan's playing career. They continued to sell after he retired. They still sell decades later. Entire generations who never watched Jordan live still wear his shoes. That doesn't happen because of street culture alone. It happens because the story behind the product is powerful and timeless. Michael Jordan represented winning. He represented confidence without excuses. When people watched him, they felt like they were watching the final boss of basketball. That image stuck. It didn't fade when trends changed. It didn't disappear when fashion evolved. It stayed because it was built on dominance. When Rich Paul tries to downplay that and spread credit around to outside factors, it comes across as insecure. It feels like an attempt to shrink Jordan's impact in order to lift someone else's legacy. But history doesn't work that way. You can't talk people out of what they lived through. People bought Jordans because Jordan delivered moments that stayed with them. Game-winning shots, finals performances, defensive intensity, competitive fire. These things created emotional attachment. That attachment turned into loyalty. Loyalty turned into a global brand. Compare that to other signature shoes. Many of them sell during a player's peak and fade once the hype dies down. That hasn't happened with Jordans. The reason is simple. Michael Jordan never felt temporary. He felt permanent. He felt like the standard. Another thing Rich Paul ignores is how other players tried and failed to replicate Jordan's shoe success. Even after Nike showed the blueprint, nobody could match it. Not because they didn't try hard enough, but because they didn't inspire the same way on the court. Inspiration is the key word here. You cannot tell people why they felt the way they felt. Fans know why they wanted Jordans. It wasn't because of street guys. It was because of greatness. It was because of watching someone who refused to lose and who never backed down. Even today, when someone wants to describe the best of the best in any field, they say the Michael Jordan of that profession. That didn't come from marketing tricks. That came from respect. That came from dominance that crossed sports and culture. Rich Paul's comments also highlight a bigger issue. There is a constant need from certain people to explain why Jordan's legacy exists instead of simply accepting it. Instead of saying he was just that great, they look for outside reasons. That alone should tell you something. Michael Jordan didn't need excuses. He didn't need narratives to protect him. He didn't need people rewriting history to elevate him. His work spoke for itself. That is why his brand is still untouchable. At the end of the day, the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Jordans became popular because Michael Jordan was special. He played the game in a way that captured people's imagination. He made them feel something. That feeling turned into loyalty that still exists today. That's why Jordans still sell. That's why they still matter. And that's why comments trying to reduce that legacy will always fall flat. You can argue opinions, but you can't erase history. When you really sit with this topic, it becomes clear why so many people reacted so strongly to what Rich Paul said. It wasn't just a bad take, it felt dismissive of an entire generation's experience. Millions of fans grew up watching Michael Jordan carry teams, dominate playoffs, and rise in the biggest moments. Their connection to Air Jordans came from that feeling of greatness, not from trying to copy someone on the street with a nice car. For many kids, Jordans were the first thing that made them feel close to a hero. You saved money, you begged your parents, you took care of them like they were gold. You didn't do that because of status. You did it because wearing those shoes made you feel confident. It made you feel like if Jordan could overcome pressure and fear, maybe you could too. That emotional pull matters more than any marketing strategy.
Another thing that gets ignored is how competitive the sneaker world already was. Jordan wasn't the only athlete with a shoe. Magic Johnson had deals, Larry Bird had deals, other stars had shoes on shelves too. Yet none of them created a cultural wave like Jordan. If street influence was the key factor, then those shoes should have taken off the same way. They didn't. That's because performance still drives belief. Michael Jordan gave people moments they could talk about for years. The shot over Craig Alo, the shrug game, the flu game, the 6 championships. Those moments became part of everyday conversation. When people wore Jordans, they weren't wearing leather and rubber. They were wearing memories. They were wearing stories. Rich Paul also underestimated how much people value authenticity. Fans can tell when something is forced. They can tell when a story doesn't match what they see on the court. Jordan never felt forced. Everything about him felt earned. That's why his brand aged well. You also have to look at the risk Nike took. At the time, giving a young player his own line and a cut of the profits was unheard of. They did it because they believed Jordan could change everything. And he did. That belief came from watching him compete, not from street trends. If copying street culture was enough, then modern athletes with massive social media reach should have passed Jordan by now. They haven't. Even with influencers, online hype, and global marketing, Jordan's brand still stands at the top. That should end the argument by itself. The truth is, greatness creates culture, not the other way around. Michael Jordan didn't follow trends, trends followed him. People dressed like him, kids played like him, brands built around him. That is the difference between someone who is popular and someone who is legendary. When Rich Paul speaks the way he does, it often feels like projection. It feels like frustration that no matter how much effort is put into building a modern image, it still doesn't touch what Jordan built naturally. And instead of accepting that, he tries to explain it away. But fans don't forget what they felt. You can't tell someone they didn't buy Jordans because of Jordan when they know exactly why they did. That's why these comments backfire. They insult the intelligence of the audience. Michael Jordan's influence didn't come from the street. It came from the court, from sweat, from will, from refusing to lose. That's why his name still carries weight decades later. That's why people still line up for his shoes. And that's why no amount of talking will ever change what he represented. In the end, this whole situation proves one thing. When you have to explain greatness with complicated theories, it usually means the truth is being avoided. Jordan's legacy is simple. He was the best, and people responded to that in the most natural way possible. And that is why the conversation about Michael Jordan's influence will never truly end. It's not just about shoes or marketing or hype. It's about excellence that can't be manufactured. You can't replicate his determination, his competitiveness, his will to dominate every single moment. Every game, every quarter, every shot mattered to him, and that's the energy that fans felt when they watched him play. It wasn't about copying someone on the street. It wasn't about wanting to have the same car or impress someone else. It was about being inspired by someone who gave everything he had every single time he stepped on the court. That kind of connection is impossible to fake. Rich Paul might believe he's providing insight into why people wear Jordans, but the truth is, the heart of it lies in the authenticity of Michael Jordan's greatness. Street culture may have added some flavor, but it was never the reason for the phenomenon. It was the excellence, the determination, the story of a man who refused to lose that captured the imagination of millions. That's why decades later, people still line up for Jordans, still watch the old games, still talk about the iconic moments. Those moments built the brand, not some artificial narrative. You also have to consider how difficult it is to reach that level of influence. Athletes today have more media exposure, more social platforms, more ways to market themselves than anyone in history, and yet no one has created the cultural wave that Jordan did. That says a lot. It's not just luck, it's not just marketing, it's performance, it's heart, it's history. You can't teach that, you can't fake that, and you can't buy it. When Rich Paul claims that street dudes helped Air Jordans become popular, he's missing the fundamental lesson. The lesson is that greatness inspires. That's it. When you're truly great, people will follow you. They'll wear your shoes, they'll quote your moments, they'll study your moves. That's what happened with Michael Jordan, and that's why his legacy is untouchable. No marketing, no influencer, no social media campaign could ever replicate it, and anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't understand what true greatness looks like. At the end of the day, this discussion highlights a simple truth. Authenticity beats artificial hype every time. Michael Jordan wasn't a trend, he was a standard. He was the benchmark of what it means to be great, to compete, to inspire. Air Jordans weren't just shoes, they were a symbol of that standard, a reminder of excellence, a connection to history. And that is why decades later, they still matter. That is why no LeBron James, no Rich Paul, no social media influencer can ever create the same magic. The street may add color, but the heart and soul of the legend always comes from the game. So, let's take a moment to think about the impact Michael Jordan had beyond just shoes. His influence wasn't limited to basketball courts or sneaker stores. He changed the way people viewed sports entirely. Kids who had never played basketball picked up a ball because they saw what he could do. Young athletes everywhere were inspired to work harder, to compete at higher levels, to chase excellence because Jordan showed them what was possible. And that inspiration can't be bought or manufactured. You can't pay someone to create that kind of motivation. It comes from seeing greatness in action and wanting to emulate it. Not because someone told you to, not because it's trendy, but because your heart knows what real skill and passion look like. And that is why no other athlete, even LeBron James with all his talent and exposure, has been able to create a movement on the same scale. LeBron has the accolades, the stats, the championships, but the cultural phenomenon of Michael Jordan is different. It's not something that can be replicated just with good marketing or social media campaigns. It's a combination of timing, talent, dominance, and authenticity. Jordan's story was organic. He rose from nothing to become the best in the world, and that journey resonated with people. That's why Air Jordans aren't just shoes, they're symbols of perseverance, of excellence, and of transcending the limits of what anyone thought possible. Rich Paul's attempt to simplify that story to a street influence completely misses the point. You can't reduce a legend to a trend. You can't claim that Air Jordans were popular because of who was wearing them outside of the court. Sure, street culture may have helped spread visibility, but it didn't create the demand. It didn't make people aspire to greatness. That came from watching Michael Jordan dominate, watching him take risks, watching him never quit, and watching him win. People wanted to emulate that energy. That's the real magic behind the brand. It's also important to recognize that the Jordan phenomenon changed the business of sports forever. Nike saw potential in giving an athlete creative input, royalties, and influence over a product. That was revolutionary at the time. But that wouldn't have mattered if Michael Jordan didn't bring the talent, drive, and personality to back it up. Without his dominance on the court, none of it works. That's the critical difference between someone who becomes a product of marketing and someone who becomes an enduring legend. Jordan was the latter. He defined his era and continues to inspire generations. And this brings us full circle. When you look at athletes today, when you see how they're marketed, how social media is leveraged, how hype is created, you realize that no one has reached Jordan's level of authenticity and influence. That's why the discussion about Air Jordans, about Michael Jordan's legacy, will always be different. It's never just shoes or marketing. It's about the example he set, the excitement he generated, and the standard he created for greatness. So, at the end of the day, while Rich Paul's comments may spark debate, the truth is simple. Michael Jordan earned his place in history, not because of street influence, not because of marketing genius alone, but because of who he was on the court. His talent, determination, and unmatched competitive spirit built a legacy that no opinion, no podcast, and no social trend can ever take away. Air Jordans are not just sneakers, they are a testament to excellence, a celebration of greatness, and a reminder of the man who inspired the world.